Alright, so in this video, I'm just going to talk about whether or not the Juno 106 is worth it in 2019 going into 2020. I personally think it's still worth it. You know, it's an amazing sounding synthesizer. Sure, it's only got 6 voices. And it just sounds great. It's very thick, very full. It's still very modern sounding, despite being, 35 years old? I mean, they were made in 1984 when they first came out. It's very easy to use, though a modern alternative is the Behringer DeepMind 12. I do have one, but it doesn't sound as good unless you get to the point where you're tripling the voices in unison. So you really have to double up, and you end up having way less voices. But if you do the unison and you split it and you set the oscillator drift on the DeepMind 12, you can get it to really sound good. Eventually I'll do a comparison between the DeepMind 12, the Juno 106, the Alpha Juno 2, and hopefully a Juno 6, as I have one lined up, but it'll be a few months away. So I might just do the 106, the DM12, and the Alpha. So during the creation of the Stranger Things soundtrack, when that show came out, everyone was, oh, Juno, 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 Juno. But apparently the title sequence that everybody thought was a Juno was actually a ARP 2600, which is the R2D2 synth. But, that also helped drive up the prices of these things. So yeah, in 2019, 2020, these aren't the most affordable things. So they're not a beginner synth. They're more of an investment. But if you're serious, they're worth getting. You can do a lot. With all these different sounds. I just pulled up the bass from the sub. Put the sub back up. I have both choruses engaged. The thing is with the 6 and the 60, they're switches, so you can actually just physically push them in easily. On the 106, they're not membrane switches, but they feel like membrane switches. And you have to try multiple times to get both of the choruses on at once for the chorus trick. high pass filter section. If you set it to 0, it's a bass boost. And they're actual switches, so it's not a real slider. It looks like a slider, but it's actually little switches. So I don't know if this one, I only got it a few months ago. I don't know if it has the factory presets on, but I'll go through a few of them and see what they sound like. That's a very classic sound. I love the rumble of that bass. Very much like an organ. The organ patch. It's kind of a bell patch. But I mean, when you want Roland bells, the D50 is the king. I like this first patch that's on Bank 1, Patch 1, that I got it with. It's my favorite one that it comes with. And that's if it's even a factory preset, because odds are it's not. The guy who owned it before was one of the first owners. So it's probably been completely saved over. But my technician, he usually puts the factory presets back on for me so that I can screw around with those. When I programmed the 106, I just like to use everything. So I've got both the waveforms on the DCO running. DCO, if you don't know, digitally controlled oscillator. I have the pulse width modulation all the way up. It just adds a little bit of thickness. As you can see, you should be able to hear that. For the sub, put it to taste. For me, it's always either at half or near all the way up. Though if you have a very heavy mix with a lot of stuff in it, you don't really need the sub, because otherwise you won't punch through. The high pass filter, if you set it to 1, you still have bass. But if you have it at 0, you have a lot more. pretty much a classic Juno 106 pad sound. What I like to do is I put the release around 5. I have the frequency up in the filter section. Not necessarily all the way up, but it's in the upper. So right now it's on 6. Where you get some of the more unique sounds is by playing with the envelope in the filter and the LFO. When you have both choruses on, it kind of almost turns into a phaser, so it goes. You can hear that phasing right now. You know, just in closing, despite the fact it's 30-something odd years old, the sounds are still very modern. You can mod the hell out of them too. I think there's a Tubatech mod. I know there's the Kiwi 106 mod, which adds a lot of functionality. And it turns a lot of these into pretty much shift keys for the controls. And then you get a ton of different functions. I think it adds a second oscillator. And, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. This one's pretty much stock. There's a blue bender that's got an LED in it because the original bender was broken. So this one kind of glows blue down here. Well, you can't see it on the camera, but it's over here. And other than that, it's stock. When the chips die on it, because they will die, and you will have to get them serviced. So that's a con against buying one of these. Is you have to spend about $400 to $500 on getting the chips replaced for the voice chips because they fail. Right now on this one, they're functioning, but I never know. You'll never know when they die. you might start getting voice stealing and stuff. And there's a way to play with the filter and the frequency and the resonant, the frequency and the resonance of the filter. And you cycle through the notes, and you can hear the chips that are failing. There's a video on it on YouTube. I saw it. And it's very good. But you know, I saw it a long time ago, so I don't really remember how it really works. But yeah, this is definitely not the beginner synth that it was 10 years ago, because the prices have skyrocketed. But they're still worth buying. So if you can get one for a decent price, or you get one that needs replacing the voice chips, and you spend a couple $100 on getting a tech to look at it and install those chips, you'll have a really good sounding analog synth from the 80s. The Juno series was considered the affordable, they're still professional, but the affordable series. There's also the JX series and the Jupiter series, the Jupiters being the top of the line. Then there's the Junos, and then the JXs were underneath. There's a lot of debate on what sounds better. But I have a JX3P and a JX8P, and they're both really good. And they're really full, thick sounding, and they have 2 oscillators, whereas this only has 1. Those are worth getting. But everybody drills over the Junos. So, if you want to be a collector, go after a Juno. But I would say get a JX. If you can get a Juno, get it. If you can get a JX, get it. And if you can get both JXs, get them and a Juno. But then you start piling up on how many synths you have. For modern equivalents, again, the DeepMind 12 is good, but it's not the same. However, it has built-in effects, and the effects are by TC Electronic and Clark Technic. Both companies are owned by Behringer, and the stuff sounds good. The effects are really good. Most of the presets on the DeepMind 12 are garbage, and you will just delete tons of them. They have a ton of duplicates. There's a chart on the website of what are duplicates, and I just rewrite all of them. And I make my own patches. But all the patches that I try to make with it, because it sort of sounds like a Juno, and if you stack enough voices, it sounds like a Poly 6. But then you can only play 3 notes at once. But if you stack the notes, you can make it sound like a Juno. And so what I do with it is I rewrite the duplicate sounds, and I just make Juno sounds. So if you were going on tour and you didn't want to take your vintage Juno 106 or 60 or 6, take a DeepMind 12, because live no one's going to be able to tell. It's got less keys. This is 61. I think that one has 49. It's smaller. It's about this big instead of being out to here. So it's an alternative. You don't have to spend a ton of money buying one of these, but they're really nice to have. Anyway, I don't think there's much more I can really say about the 106 that hasn't been said by everybody else. And I hope you liked this, and I hope you subscribe. I hope to do more videos on synthesizers soon. I have a lot of them, and I'd like to share what I have with all of you guys out there. I work on the playing. I've only been playing keys for 2.5 years now, and I'm working on it. I haven't been playing as long as I've been playing guitar. I've been playing guitar for 18. So, I got a lot of work to do. But to play basic songs and chords and basic scales, yeah. I'm not exactly going to be like Nari Soul or was it Josh Wright or Yuja Wang or any of those guys who you see online. But I've also been playing a fraction as long as they have on the keys. On guitar, different story. About same length of time. So, thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time. Hope you got something out of this. Alright? Thank you. Bye.